Hey everybody, happy Friday. So I just wanted to pop on real quick and also just do a quick little training. So I was over in my CEP for a provider's course page, and one of the questions that I had been asked was how to find a CEP compliant supplement. So this is something that most people, even if they've been doing AIP forever and they've been an AIP warrior, that unless they've really dove into the subject, it's something that they probably don't know much about, or they're accidentally messing up. So that's one of the reasons why some people cannot achieve full healing on an AIP or CEP diet. It's one of the reasons why we also say that the CEP requires a CEP provider, is because making sure that your supplements are completely compliant and cross-contamination free, and also pharmaceutical strength, and all of these good things is something that really only a CEP provider can do. And the same goes for AIP. It's really very similar. There's only a couple ingredients that are not the same as far as like the elimination diet go. For example, CEP, as I've mentioned on an earlier video, allows you to have black pepper and also excludes everything in the fungus or fermented group because of the mold relationship and the cross-contamination. It also removes rhizomes, which rhizomes are an entire group of foods such as tapioca and cassava that are very well used in the AIP world, as well as apple cider vinegar, which would be a yeast. And those kind of things are not used on the CEP. So today we're gonna go over supplements a little bit, and we're gonna help you kind of get a good beginning on how to pick supplements that are not going to be cross-contaminated, derived from, or anything like that for yourself. Now, of course, you'll want to work with your provider, preferably CEP provider or someone who's very well trained on AIP supplements and ingredients and things like that, which is going to be kind of like finding a unicorn. So that's something to be thinking about, making sure that your provider, most doctors that I know of, even the ones I absolutely love and that I work with very closely, they do not for a second think about the ingredients of the supplements they get. They have no idea what's in them. In fact, they look to me and say, hey, Rebecca, does that have soy in it? Hey, Rebecca, is that anything in that? Because they know that I am looking for that. So that's a difference of perspective of what's important to somebody, about what they think is relevant, and honestly, it's just also something about what they've been through. So that is something that experience teaches you to be careful about those things, and it's just something you can't learn in a book. And now I'm not going to be able to teach you in one day all the things you need to know in order to pick out the best supplements for you. There's absolutely no way. It took me like years to really learn like the best brands and what the difference between like a Whole Foods brand versus like a pharmaceutical brand is. And then it took me a whole bunch of time, I'm still learning 3 years later, of how to find compliant supplements that don't contain allergens or derivatives. I would say it took me over a year to really learn it, like to where I had a good base and knew the right questions to ask and things like that. And I had to learn by failing. And so that's just something that, just kind of a little warning for you, if you're trying to do it by yourself, either set those realistic expectations that you're going to fail and you're going to have to learn the hard way, or get some help. Get a CEP provider, get somebody who is trained on this kind of stuff to help you not only find the right supplements that are not cross-contaminated and not derived from the wrong things, but also the right things for your body and your situation that can really tweak it for you. So I'm going to dive right into how to find those supplements, and I'm going to share a little handout with you. Now, I'm not going to give anybody the link to this because the link is reserved for those on the CEP provider course. But this is also something that I would share with a client of mine who was really struggling with this and really wanted to be empowered with this. This would be a possible session. So I'm going to go ahead and share that real quick. We're going to go over there. I'm going to go find that little thing. Okay, so these are the notes that I wrote in order to do that. So we're going to, the first thing I'm going to tell you is to go ahead and start with the Paleo Approach by Sarah Ballantyne. So one of the reasons I do this is because on there, she has a fantastic resource. My thought is, why reinvent the wheel if it has already been invented for me? So I'm going to go and I'm going to make sure that I can get access to this. I took a couple screenshots. Now, I would never reproduce somebody's work and call it my own. That definitely is something that would not be right on not only my level, but on anybody's level, that would be considered plagiarism. But I also feel strongly that there's no reason to recreate the wheel if it has already been recreated. So I've already got this fantastic source. So if I could get people to just go over to that source and look for that source, then that could really help some people out. So I'm going to go over, and like I said, I'm looking at some screenshots. I want one that really kind of communicates what I'm trying to do. Okay, found one. And let me go ahead and share screen with that. And so this is an example of a screenshot that I took with my phone. And so one of the reasons I recommend this is because she has a couple sources. She has common sources of sugar, and other names for sugar. She has one for common sources of gluten and wheat contamination. She has one for soy, one for corn. And those are soy, corn, and sugar and gluten. Those are four of the big five, the fifth one being dairy, that you really want to know what the hidden names were. The marketing people out in the world trying to sell stuff, they know that people don't want sugar and things. So they started making it into high fructose corn syrup, for example. But they also can call it honey. People are like, oh, that's natural, but they're not turning around and reading that it's not actually honey, that it's actually corn syrup. So it can be very misleading. And so in order to try to trick people into buying their product unknowingly, not knowing what they were putting in their body, they have come up with about 1 million different names for ingredients. They have also found out that if you are not using it as an ingredient, but instead are using it as a manufacturing tool, for example, gluten can be used to clarify bone broths and juices and things like that. They realize that they don't have to put it on the ingredients, it's not required, so they leave it off. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of really picky about what brands of bone broth that I recommend, because any old box might be clarified with gluten and therefore cross-contaminated. There's really no way that you can separate that from the bone broth. So it will contain gluten, but it's just not considered an ingredient. It's considered a manufacturing item. So that's just one example. Grated cheese, for example, has gluten in it because it's used to keep it from sticking together. Powdered gloves at the dentist, they also may contain gluten or corn or rhizome. So these are things that we need to know when they're putting that inside of our mouth, especially for those of us who have a leaky brain or systemic inflammation, especially those with a hypersensitive immune system who like multiple chemical sensitivities or fibromyalgia. So those are things that we kind of want to be like, oh my gosh. And I want to make sure that you understand these things, because you cannot trust a label unless you really know what you're looking at. So I'm going to share that again, and we're going to take a little bit closer look. Now, again, this is just a screenshot. There are several pages of this. I'm not going to go through them all today, but I think it's an excellent source of where to begin. So she goes through some of these, but also this right here, which I'm going to kind of see if I can scan on here. These are just different names for gluten and places that gluten are found. And you'll notice right here, I want you to also notice, and I'm sorry about the weird screen, it's hard to control. Wheatgrass is on here. Wheatgrass is considered gluten-free, but it is definitely not 100% free of gluten. It does contain some gluten. It's just below 20 parts per million. So note that. It would also be considered, even 1 part per million would be considered cross-contaminated. The fact that it touched wheat means it's cross-contaminated. So there's a lot of things on there. Lots of names and places where hidden gluten would be. So I'm going to stop share right there because I kept having trouble controlling that screenshot anyway. And I'm just going to remind you that checking that out is something that I highly recommend. I also recommend having a digital copy. So I have two book readers on my phone. One is Amazon Kindle, which is just an app that I downloaded. I don't have to have an actual Kindle machine. I can just Kindle through my phone. And then also Playbooks, which is Google's version of that app, where either one you can buy books. Now you can buy the Paleo Approach not through Google's Playbooks, but you can buy it through Amazon Kindle for about $10. So yay, $10, really cheap. And what I like having a digital version is that it's not the easiest read. I'll just be 100% honest. It's not something I just light reading. It's like reading a science textbook, which is great if you're super nerdy and you're in that mood. But if you're trying to not be on or work or something like that, then it's not the smoothest read. It doesn't read like a novel or anything like that. It reads like facts. So but using it as literally a resource material is ideal. So I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do. If I'm in the grocery store, for example, I might want to open up my Amazon Kindle. Let me go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and open up that book, and I'll have bookmarked those pages so that I can have it right here. Now you can't see it very well. It's a little bit better there. And then I'm going to zoom in to the area and read and see if that ingredient is on there. That's a good beginner's guide. Now, I also want to remind people that this is not a 100% complete list. Not only does it not include like all the other foods that are on all of both elimination diets, it also there's just no way you can put together a complete list of all the hidden places of gluten, or, places that they could be, or other names for them or anything like that. In fact, she doesn't have the scientific name on there. Like, I think it's called triticum something ridiculous, and, some Latin word. I'll pull that up in just a second. It's not even on there. And that would be in like things like skincare, or could be, I've actually seen it in like some other areas as well. I want to say tea, but I'm not really positive, don't remember clearly. So just know that this is not a 100% complete list. It's just a good beginner list. So she's made a beginner list. I've also made a beginner list on the ones that I think are relevant to supplements. But it's a really good place to go. So it's a wonderful, highly credible resource with a lot of information on things to find hidden soy, corn, and gluten in both food and supplements. And like I said, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Why do that? So I did share a screenshot just so you have an idea of what you're looking for then. And again, this list is not complete. For example, paper cups are not listed. But it's a great resource to get the mental juices flowing, start asking the right questions, and hopefully get you to ask the same questions about other ingredients not listed. Okay, so the list is not absolute. For example, L-lysine is listed as a possible corn source, but L-lysine is not always from corn. So remember that. These are possible areas that you could find problems. I happen to use personally, I use Allergy Research Group, which is a pharmaceutical strength brand that's very conscious of allergens, hence Allergy Research Group. So I really like them for that. I buy only supplements from suppliers that will answer my detailed questions about what things are derived from. I personally, if you're a health coach or if you're in the healthcare professional world, I recommend Emerson Ecologics for most supplements. If you guys aren't a healthcare professional, then anyone who has an Emerson Ecologics account can also have an online pharmacy. For example, I have Wellevate, which is my online pharmacy where people can just go and buy whatever they want. I also, just FYI, shameless plug here, I do offer a 10% permanent discount to anybody who has an account with my Wellevate account. So I'll try to remember to post that below, making myself a note here. And there was something else I wanted to post below. Oh yeah, I was also going to post a link to Sarah Ballantyne's book. So I'll post that below in the comments on the Facebook page. So if you're watching this and you're not on the Facebook page, that won't be available to you, so just know that. But you can always email me or contact me or asking for it. Okay, so I also recommend Biotics Research, which is one of the few brands not available from Emerson, but I recommend them because they'll answer all of these questions and will not have a problem giving you these answers. Emerson Ecologics houses a whole bunch of different brands. I don't even know how many brands that they carry, but the company itself is so good at contacting the manufacturer and answering any question that you have in detail without any complaint or negative feedback. So the other thing I want you to know is that just because it is gluten-free, corn-free, etc., does not mean that it is not derived from gluten or corn, etc. So an inflammatory response, and therefore, so you can still have an inflammatory response even if there's no antibodies being produced, no allergic reaction, or no intolerance or autoimmune reaction. You can still have an inflammation response to an item, especially if you have a hypersensitive or overactive immune system. Especially if you have leaky brain, it could cause inflammation in the brain. Or if you have neurological inflammation, this might make something hypersensitive or indicate that you have hypersensitivity. This causes a stress on the body. So that stresses out the body and lowers the immune system, messes with hormones like cortisol, etc., thyroid, etc. This can build slowly and daily. So imagine I'm taking a small amount of allergen. We're going to call it an allergen. It's not actually an allergen. It's just an inflammatory particle. And my body is just going kind of freaking out a little bit every time I put it in, and I'm putting it every day. Now remember, inflammation, when you eat or consume something that causes an inflammatory response in your body, it lasts in your body for 6 months. So imagine doing that every single day. You're increasing it just a little bit. So it's accumulative. It's accumulating in your body. So slowly over this time period, you can become more and more stress on the body, more and more depressed immune system, or stress on the adrenals, or problems with however your body expresses the inflammatory brain fog, and however it expresses the inflammatory response, however it expresses that. This builds slowly and daily in a person, and because you're taking supplements, it's every day, maybe multiple times a day. So in these individuals, the immune system is already on hyper alert. So if you're looking for this, if you're not looking for this kind of response to a supplement, and you happen to take a supplement that is doing this to you, you'll miss it. Your doctor will miss it. Everybody will miss it. No one will put that together unless you are looking for it. And especially if you have something that says like gluten-free, but it's made from gluten, or corn-free, but it's made from corn, or soy-free, but it's made from soy, then that will, especially, again, that marketing, you might miss it. So just be aware of that. I want that to be just like, do not forget that marketing ploy. And that's exactly what it is. It is a marketing ploy. They're like, oh, well, we removed all the proteins. Well, you're still reacting on an inflammatory level. Even if you're not having antibodies, you're having an inflammation response on people with a hypersensitive inflammatory response. So I have actually included, for my coaches that I am training, my coaches and other healthcare professionals, I've included a list of usual suspects. So I'm going to show this to everybody real quick. And again, this is just the beginning. This is something I put together in 20 minutes. This is not, all inclusive. This is just the first draft. So I'm going to show that to you a little bit. I kind of just went by the alphabet. So, again, I've had the usual suspects below. Again, it's just a starter list. There's no way that I can make a complete list, especially in a short period of time, just prepping for a talk real quick. But these things, all things made from seeds or rhizomes, those are things that seeds should be from something where you can easily, again, you can use the paleo approach. You can put, is cumin a seed, is cloves a seed, or you can just put in seeds, and she'll give you a list of things that are and are not seeds just by having that digital copy of the paleo approach on your phone that you can pull out in the grocery store. Rhizomes are a little harder. So anytime you see a plant, you want to search the web and see if it's a rhizome. All plants could be a rhizome. And you want to know, they also could be seed. For example, there was something that I was eating the other day, and I don't remember exactly what the plant was, but let's say it was dandelion. And one of them had, it was quercetin actually. And quercetin, in one formula, it made it from the seed, and the other formula, it made it from the stem. So those are very important differentiations of whether or not I'm consuming a seed. Also, I want to find out, is this a rhizome? So that's easily searchable on the web, and that's a good question to ask. So all nutrients, these are vitamins and minerals, A, B, C, magnesium, potassium, etc. They should suspect that they may derive from something suspect. They could be derived from one of the things that are eliminated on one of these elimination diets. I want to make this very clear, and I'm going to stop share just real quick so I can really look in your eyes. There is no such thing as chemically derived chemicals. There's no such thing. So the other day we were trying to find out if a glutathione IV was derived from soy, which is the most common source for glutathione supplementation. However, it's not the only one. And so we were trying to find out this information, and the the source, the doctor's office actually kept saying, well, it's chemically derived. Well, what they don't realize is you can tell that this person just really didn't know about allergens. They didn't really know what questions to ask. They didn't really understand how things were manufactured. They didn't really understand, or they just didn't understand what we were asking. There is no such thing as chemically derived magnesium or chemically derived glutathione. There's no such thing as chemically derived anything. Even if it is a synthetic form, you have to make it from something. I can't say, okay, I'm going to make glutathione today, and I'm going to go to my chemical store, my chemical plant, where I have chemical glutathione growing on a plant. That has to come somewhere. Even if I go to a store and I buy a chemical, it has to be made from something originally that grew out of the ground or was, even created in a lab, you had to have something to turn into that creation. Even if I create a hydrogen bomb, which is two atoms colliding, I have to get those atoms from somewhere. So this is something that maybe 99% of the time you won't have a problem with people answering these questions, but it's just that 1% of the time where somebody, like I said, they just don't understand what you're asking, or they don't understand how things are, the fact that they aren't understanding the logic of the fact that everything has to be made from something. So if they're not, say it's not made from anything, then they just really don't understand the question, or they don't understand the process of making things. So just what I recommend then is just move on to someone who understands your question, either by saying, so for the doctor's office, for example, we ask to speak to the pharmacy. If the pharmacy can't help us, then we ask to speak to the manufacturer. If we can't get information, then we have to assume that it is unsafe. But generally, if we just go to somebody, somebody else who understands what we're asking and understands the logic of it, it's just, that person's just not getting it. So just, don't hold that against them. They can't help it. So the other question I want to answer before I show you my short list of things to how to find a free supplement is, should you trust your doctor or nurse? The short answer is most likely no. So while they may be aware of all your allergens, again, they don't understand what things are made from and how they're manufactured, and they don't even know what's in things. So if a nurse is about to put a shot in you, she's trusting that the doctor has decided that this is the best thing for you. But if the doctor doesn't know what's in it or how it's made or what it's derived from, then he's not going to think about it. He doesn't think that way. So it's just not something on his radar. He's thinking, oh, it's testosterone, it's not soy. Well, guess what? Testosterone is made from soy. And so for someone who, is sensitive to soy, this could cause an inflammatory response the minute that you put it into the bloodstream or muscle or wherever they put testosterone. Not in the medical, I don't put in shots, so I don't know. So just think about that kind of stuff. So I personally have been given IVs and shots full of allergens, and I'm sure, and I know several of my clients have as well. And it's not like, no, I'm not mad at that doctor. I actually still work with that doctor, still refer to that doctor. It's just that now I make sure that as a coach, I'm working as a patient advocate to make sure that my clients are making informed decisions. So if they choose to do the testosterone, they know what they're choosing, they know what they're risking, and they can be aware of how that makes them feel and make the best decision for their health. Okay, so I'm going to share with you that little list real quick. And again, if you're one of my coaches in my training program, then this is already available to you on the drive. Okay, so right here, I've kind of done a few things. These are a couple things. So ascorbic acid, usually vitamin C, it's going to be made from corn or tapioca. Alcohol, unless it's distilled, and cane sugar alcohol, which would be distilled, and the yeast usually doesn't cause a thing. It is possible, but it's highly unlikely. Haven't had anyone react to cane sugar alcohol as long as it was distilled yet, but corn and wheat, they will. Acetate, anything acetate could be made from corn or etc. All B vitamins are suspect of corn and gluten. All C vitamins are suspect of corn and rhizomes. That's why I've included cassava. They could be used cassava starch or tapioca starch. Would be another word for that. Citric acid is not made from citrus. Anything cultured, you're worried about yeast and fermentation and fungus. Citrate anything, again, it's going to have citric acid. Canola is, A, it's not a food, and B, it is also highly refined with gluten and corn. So and coloring can also be made from both gluten and corn. D-alpha tocopherol. Tocopherol is a fancy science word for vitamin E and is often made from soy. Dextrose and dextrin, all of those are corn. Any type of extract you should be cautious about because you don't know how it's made. Ethanol is an alcohol made from corn or gluten. All tocopherols, again, vitamin E. It could also be wheat germ. It could be also made from nuts. So that's another allergen that might upset people. Erythritol. So here's one thing you need to know. Anything in OL is made from corn. That includes erythritol, xylitol, mannitol, anything all. Alcohol, etc. So notice those are all OL. Glutamate, glucose, glutathione, hydrolyzed anything you should be wary of. It's usually a wheat or corn protein. L-lysine, again, I just put it on there because it's a common one to make sure you're getting a clean brand. Anything with malt or maltodextrin. Notice malt is usually indicative of gluten and dextrin is usually indicative of corn. So basically that's corn gluten. So they've just concentrated it down to make sure that only the gluten's available. Mannitol, again, OL. Myco anything, this is going to indicate that there are mycotoxins. So one time I was buying a cereal, for example, and it said mycelium. I want to add that to it as well. Mycelium. And I didn't recognize, wasn't thinking back to 9th grade biology or 6th grade biology or whatever it was when you study the plant kingdoms. And that, or mycelium, I think is that what it is. I'll go back and fix that spelling. I didn't go think about the fact that that meant mushroom. So that was a nasty ER visit. So natural flavoring, this could have anything in it in the world, as can spices. So that's something usually for food, not so much for supplements, but I went ahead and put it in there just for fun. Phosphatidylcholine, 99% of the time is made from soy. Reishi is something that some people may not recognize as a mushroom. So again, it would be gluten cross-reactive as well as a mold and inflammatory trigger in many people. Splenda, sucralose, starch, Asclepiades, most people don't realize that while this is a probiotic, it is also a yeast. Now, it's a friendly yeast, but some people who are very sensitive to yeast and fungus, they will react to it. So it's something just to be aware of. Sugar can be made from corn. In fact, brown sugar is often made from corn. Vinegar, especially distilled white, going to be made from corn or wheat. Vegetable anything such as vegetable starch, vegetable protein, vegetable this, vegetable oil. We don't know what that's made from. When they talk about vegetable anything, they usually include corn, soy, and wheat as vegetables. It could also be made from mushrooms or certain seeds or whatever. So just know that that is a very vague word and they're hiding something. Xylitol, again, we got the OL for corn. Xanthan gum, also derived from corn, and yucca. Yucca is actually cassava, which is a rhizome, and sometimes they misspell it as yucca. So yucca is actually, I think, like a medicinal plant related to cactus. However, you will see in the grocery store right by the yucca, they'll say, hey, yucca for sale. And the same will happen on supplements. I've seen it in a mouthwash where it listed yucca as an ingredient, where in actuality it was like a yucca syrup, which is like a tapioca syrup. So just FYI, those are some just beginning things. What I really wanted you to take away from today is not remember everything that I just showed you. Yes, you could screenshot some of those things and get a lot out of it. You know, if you want to do that, go for it. But what I really want you to gather today is that thought process of starting to ask the right questions. So I'm going to just pull up some random label for a supplement. So I'm literally just going to put in the word supplement into Google. I'm not even going to do anything else. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, so I'm going to share screen and show, I literally have no idea what it's about to come up. So supplement, we're going to go over to shopping, just because I know they'll give me a product. So let's get this one. So I have no idea what this is. I'm not recommending this. So just FYI, we are not recommending this supplement whatsoever. But I'm gonna kind of see if I can enlarge this. And we're gonna look at this. So right here. So vitamin C right there is ascorbic acid. Vitamin C I know is already a suspect that I don't know what that's derived from. That could be something. Vitamin E, same thing. Same for B6. Now, calcium and magnesium, they're usually minerals, so they're usually not made from allergens, but they could be made from eggshells, so that is something to think of. Zinc, we don't know what that's made of. We don't know where they got it, so that's something to think of. Selenium, chromium, still don't know where they're made from. I can Google, I'll go ahead and show you this, and I might put something like, what is chromium derived from? Sometimes I'll get an answer, sometimes I won't. So where does chromium come from? Let's put picolinate, because that's usually picolinate. I may not even be, there we go. Okay. Derived from chromium picolinic acid, that doesn't really tell me. So this one would be a little bit harder to find out. And they could, like, I've actually heard of things being like derived from literally like supplements that coming from rocks. So that is a thing. We have calcium that sometimes comes from oyster shells. So asking those kind of questions are things that you want to know. So just asking those questions, and those are the types of questions that we want to answer. And so having a really good source that can get those answers for you is invaluable when you're asking this many questions about one product. So fenugreek, of course, that is a seed. So I just happen to know that. Stanols, look, OLS, don't know what a stanol is or a stanol, but I do know it's made from corn because of the OLS. So two different types of corn right there. And let's see, anything with acid, I'm going to wonder exactly what it's made. Well, no, it's red palm oil, it's probably fine. Turmeric is a rhizome, so sometimes I take it out, sometimes I don't. Ginseng, I want to say, is ginseng a rhizome? Let's find out. So, is ginseng a rhizome? Usually finds pretty good. Okay, so it is a rhizome. So ginseng could potentially cause some people some problems. Now, and I may not take it out every single time, but if somebody's been doing a lot of ginseng, I am going to take it out because they're more likely to have a problem with it than someone who has never taken it before. Garlic extract, rhodiola, glutathione, again, that's a soy probably, we don't know. So I'm not going to finish reading this label, but I just want to point out to you that I can pull up any supplement, and these are the types of questions that we need to be asking. So the best way, so let's answer the final question. What is the best way to find an AIP or CEP compliant product? The best way is for someone who is to get with a coach who has already done all the research. I wish I had a better answer for you, but if for some reason you can't do that, start asking these questions, start gathering this information. If you're in my private Facebook group, which is available to my newsletter, then this is a great area to ask a question like, hey, Rebecca, why don't you can you tell me a safe vitamin B6? What do you recommend? And while I can't give a recommendation to an individual, I can tell you what I use in practice. I can tell you what I use for me, and I can give you a couple options based on what you think is best for yourself. So feel free to ask those questions. Whether you are one of my coaches or in my private Facebook group, feel free to ask those kind of questions. Just know that I can't give any medical advice unless, any medical advice at all, and I can't give any advice specific for your case unless you are my client for liability reasons and ethical reasons. So feel free to do that. So I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope this was educational. I hope it was helpful. And if you guys have any questions, shoot them down below. So thanks a lot for joining me today. I'm Rebecca with My Crazy Journey.